Occult Confessions is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit occultconfessions.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the occult on the digital airwaves.
Hello, everybody. Today is a little bit different. Instead of your usual Rob hosting your normal Occult Confessions episodes, today it will be me, Bree Literal, as I kind of introduce you to what I have been doing on the Patreon. So I will give a little bit of a trigger warning before we start this episode. I will be talking about the death of a child, but it won't be anything graphic. I just want to put that out there for people. Also, religious mania, if that triggers anybody, that'll also be a heavy topic for this one. I am here with Rob, of course.
Hello. I am here to talk about these things that already make me sad.
Yeah. I'm also here with Evangeline Olsen.
Hello.
And potentially Savannah Verrett if she wants to be here.
Potentially. I'm here.
Okay, I'm just checking. I didn't know. I'm just checking.
In the flesh.
Physically here. I didn't know if you were here.
I could be at home playing Baldur's Gate right now, but I'm here, so I'm going to do this, okay?
That's the spirit.
Questioning your decisions, but yeah, all right.
Look, Rob was like, can you be here at 4? And I was like, fine, I guess.
and you're getting in 100 episodes in one day.
Woo.
It's a marathon.
All right, so Bree.
Sorry, I'm here to lighten the mood too, because the mood just got really dark.
It's gonna get so sad.
So what is the specific topic we're on to today?
So for the main channel episode that we're doing here, as well as an additional Patreon episode, we will be specifically talking about what I've been calling murder in the name of Abraham. And by that, I mean the story of Abraham and Isaac, where God's like, hey, kill your kid for me.
So we're doing 2 interconnected episodes.
Correct, yes.
But they're separate stories, but related to Abraham.
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yeah.
And various other religious ideations that were put forth in these cases, but that story specifically is a through line for both of them. And many other cases, fun fact, this is just 2 out of many that people have decided to do this. And it's, from what I have seen, mostly men who... either their own children
biblical.
Or other children, yeah.
So, dude,
That's
Abraham.
interesting, because I don't know why that surprises me, but I feel like it does.
It's a man-based myth. Both Abraham and Isaac are dudes.
Yeah, but I guess I was just thinking with, like, this might be really dark too, but like postpartum depression and stuff like that. Like,
I was actually going to bring that up that you say that. A lot of the cases that you see of women murdering children, a lot of the times it's related to postpartum. But when it comes to men murdering their own children, unless we're talking family annihilation, and even in those cases, a lot of it's got to do with the Bible, but specifically the story really shows up in a lot of those cases.
So this one we're giving to you, today's episode, and then if you want the second part of this conversation, you do need to become a patron for as little as $2 a month. You can listen to both sides of this dark, dark conversation.
And this is the light episode.
Oh, good. There you go. So if you like it dark, Bree's murdered so many people over on the Patreon.
So many.
All right, let's pledge it out. We, the members
of the secret order of alchemical actors, do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it.
All right, Bree, what's happening?
All right, so today I will be telling you the very, very tragic tale of a 5-year-old girl named Phoebe Jonchuck. Now, Phoebe Jonchuck was born to Michelle Kerr and a John Jonchuck Jr. She was a bright, beautiful girl who loved princesses and drawing, but she also hated water and didn't know how to swim. Heartbreakingly, at only 5 years old, the water is exactly where her own father would leave her to die.
And did I notice they weren't married, the parents?
Correct. And there's reasons for that,
Okay.
as the mother, in interviews, always refers to the father as Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh, no.
This man had custody of a child he shouldn't have custody of. And I'm going to rage about that at the end of this.
Let's get into it.
All right, so on the night of January 8th in 2015 in St. Petersburg, this is in Florida, Police Sergeant William Vickers was on his way home. This is around midnight at the end of his shift. As he headed down I-275, a white PT Cruiser sped past him at over 100 miles per hour. He radioed it in as he began the pursuit of the vehicle, intending to pull it over. However, once the vehicle approached the Dick Miser Bridge, I think is how you say that name.
I've never been to the Dick Miser Bridge in St. Petersburg.
It overlooks Tampa Bay.
Okay.
The cruiser pulled over onto the shoulder. A large, disheveled man exited the driver's seat and headed towards the officer. The officer warned him to get back in the vehicle, but rather than listening, the man yelled back, "You have no free will." As he pulled...
This was a man driving a PT Cruiser again.
Yes, a white PT
A white
Cruiser.
PT Cruiser.
Yes.
That is the most suspicious vehicle I think I've ever heard of.
They don't usually show up in these cases, which is interesting.
White PT Cruiser.
It's usually like a van or a pickup truck.
White Ford Bronco, right? But not a white PT Cruiser.
Yeah. But...
So you don't have free will, is what he tells him.
Yes, he yells this at the officer. And as he says this, he goes to the back seat of his car and he pulls a child out from it. The man then carries the young girl to the edge of the bridge and throws her over the concrete wall
Oh my God.
While the police officer is watching.
with his gun drawn,
Oh my goodness.
because he assumed that this man was coming at him with a weapon.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
The officer recalls hearing a scream and then a splash. The man then just turned away and drove off.
What? He didn't try to stop the dude?
No, the officer immediately was like, radioed in, "I'm going into this water.
Oh,
I'm going to try to
fair
find a
enough.
child."
Yeah.
But unfortunately, she wouldn't be found until about an hour and 45 minutes later by a search team, a college search team. And we would later find out that she did not die on impact. She drowned.
So she drifted up the...
Yeah, she drifted about 30 minutes up the Tampa Bay bit that was underneath this bridge.
Was the bridge really tall?
It was 62 feet.
Oh,
So,
She fell
and it was
62
Tampa
feet.
Bay.
Yes.
holy shit.
Yeah. So we're going to go back in time a little bit. So John Jonchuck Jr. had been troubled his entire life. He didn't have the best upbringing. He was kind of thrown around a bit, house to house. You could say abusive household, but more so just neglected than abusive. The mother of his child, like I had said, Michelle Kerr, dubbed him like Jekyll and Hyde. And in the short period of time that they were together, he would be arrested several times, at the very least 7 that I could find, just for physical assault and battery on his wife, his stepmother, and some dude that I didn't get much details about.
Wait.
Oh.
Yeah.
How did the
And yeah,
the
this-
mother have any custody over her?
Nope. He did. He had full
Wait.
custody.
That's
Why?
baffling.
What was wrong with mom?
So it wasn't entirely clear. They both had struggles. It seemed that them together was very toxic off of everything that I read. So there were reports against her as well.
Like she had gone to jail.
No.
Oh.
He was the only, well, okay, that I saw. I could be wrong about that, but most of the arrests, there had been calls and reports against her that I saw, but not actually any arrests or charges. He actually had charges brought on him.
So
multiple
he has a
times.
record. She does not. He has custody. She does not.
Correct.
And they were married at one point?
No, they were never married.
Oh.
They got together, I think, when they were like late teens, early 20s, and then she got pregnant.
But you just said his wife or whatever.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Didn't mean to say that. I said wife because it's just you instinctively want to say
Partner,
that. but-
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what was his deal? Like, why would he have gotten custody?
That's a great question that I have yet to figure out.
Was he
because-
connected with something? Was he in the military or something?
Nope. He
Just a
also had a
regular guy.
history of smoking crack. So did she at some point. They did it together at some point. After she had, well, let me rephrase that.
Go ahead.
So I'm not sure if she did, but she was aware of his, and it seemed like that he did it in her presence. And this was specifically after she was diagnosed with MS, and I think that's part of the reason why she didn't get custody of the kid.
Oh,
is because of her
physical disability.
MS, yes.
Yeah.
After she had Phoebe is when she was diagnosed.
What is MS?
Multiple I can't
Multiple
say it.
sclerosis.
Oh, okay.
It's a
Degenerative disease. Yeah.
of the spinal tissue and fluid in the body. It is horrible and long and painful, and you can't cure it. It's rough.
You become fairly incapacitated. People can live a long time with
Yeah.
it, but you become fairly incapacitated.
Physically or very hindered
That
by
still
it.
doesn't explain why they just let the child go with
Because there
him.
could be for an MS, a young woman diagnosed with MS, there could be
Yeah.
quite a long time where she's still quite mobile.
I mean,
And at this point in time, when he was getting custody, okay, I say that, but I'm going to go on a whole angry rant about this later. But at the point in time that he had secured custody, he wasn't yet showing any signs of his deteriorating mental state, other than the fact that he was an abusive prick.
And that he'd been to jail.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, so.
Oh, okay. I say that the mental thing. Let me rephrase that, because he had been Baker acted 3 times in his life. Baker acting is when you are involuntarily committed to a hospital for a number of things. It can be so many things. The other person that I'm going to talk about basically had the same thing happen to them, but his was for writing indecent letters.
Your second case.
Yeah.
So in this case, we don't know why he was committed?
I think it has a lot to do with the charges put against him, one of which was forgery charges of checks against. So he forged checks from the mother of his child.
But then maybe he acted out in front of the police, and that caused him to be.
So I think it was like the 7 arrests. Not all brought charges, but some of them did. And I had the stepmother had said in one of the interviews that I was listening to that he had been Baker acted 3 times. And even the lawyer that was helping him get custody before she knew it was happening was even like, how is this man not being Baker acted right now?
Yeah.
Because she tried to warn people the day before and they didn't listen. And that's going to be a continued theme in this, is so many people warned the proper authorities, but they failed this 5-year-old girl at every opportunity they could.
Tell us a story.
Sorry. So, despite all of these things, he managed to get custody of his daughter. And in the short 5 years that she lived in about ones that I could specifically and actually confirm 15 different homes with him, because he couldn't hold down a job and was homeless for most of her life. And the last home they were in, I believe, was his stepmother's, the father's stepmother's house. And that's when his religious delusions really came into place. When he moved into his stepmother's home, I don't know why she had this, and I've seen pictures of this Bible. It is a century-old leather-bound Swedish Bible that I cannot figure out where it came from, but this stepmother had it. And this man became obsessed with it. Now, when he...
It's in Swedish?
Yes. That's important because I'll get to it.
Okay.
But the mental diagnoses that I had seen come up when he was Baker acted was that he confirmed was bipolar, which bipolar delusions, they do tend to lend towards a lot of religious ideation in a lot of cases, but that doesn't excuse what he did, because this man was not found criminally insane. He knew what he was doing. I want to make that very clear. It was around Christmas of 2014. And that Christmas Eve, he had actually had dinner with Michelle, the mother of his child. I keep wanting to say wife, Phoebe, and I think Michelle's new boyfriend. I saw that in some articles, and then in some it didn't mention him. And it was a fine dinner. Everything was fine. But that Christmas, he became obsessed with this Bible, and he took it everywhere with him. He even slept with it. He also became obsessed with people jumping off the Skyline driveway, which is where that bridge is that he threw his daughter from.
How so? People were just doing it often enough that he just followed it? He
just became obsessed with the phenomena of people specifically jumping, whether it was just for funsies or for, to commit suicide. I didn't really look much into that avenue, because to me, that obsession was not as important, but It did get brought up, and I don't know exactly what that means.
Interesting. How tall is the Bay Bridge? Do you know?
I don't, but it's tall.
Yeah. Well,
it's a distance.
I was just thinking about it because, like, we live in Maryland and people commit suicide quite frequently off of the Bay Bridge. So I don't know.
Well, with this bridge, I questioned. I only say for funsies or for suicide. That's a weird sentence because Phoebe herself did not die on impact from that 62 feet. She drowned.
Gotcha.
So, and that's a small child. So I don't know.
The water can be relatively forgiving.
Right. It also can be the opposite depending on the height. But at 62 feet.
Depending on how you land.
Yeah. So.
Oh. The Bay Bridge is 354 feet.
Wow.
So,
well, at the highest height.
Yeah, at the highest.
So in addition to this Bible obsession, he did manage to have a job at this point in time. And his religious obsession and ideation was kind of seeping into this, but the people that he was working with didn't have any reference for the Bible, so they couldn't have known that what he was saying was potentially dangerous. So he kept quoting Abraham and Isaac and the sacrifice of a lamb. He also specifically, I think this was on the last day that he had gone to work before this happened. I'm going to quote him here. He said, "I've got to walk the pyramid." He proclaimed this to his coworkers. "I just hope that when I get to the top, I don't have to do it. I hope I don't have to make that sacrifice. I hope someone stops me." Yeah. But of course, they didn't know what that meant.
So for people like me who don't know the Bible very well, the Abraham and Isaac story is the one where God is like, kill your son. The dude goes to kill his son, and then God stops him right before he does it.
He doesn't.
Yeah, he sends an angel.
No, there's a goat, I believe, and it's stuck in some bushes, and he says that he sacrificed the goat instead.
Yeah.
There's a substitution.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But he's literally like, goat, not child.
In some ways, it sets the precedent for the sacrifices that the Jews would perform as part of their religious rituals for a long time.
Oh, okay.
So this is going to lead us to the day before the murder occurred. Now, this day, as well as the day of, are the two most infuriating encounters with Florida's DCS, which is the Department of Child Services, as well as just the police in general. Because the day before, he's actually at the lawyer who was working with him about his custody stuff. Her name is Genevieve Torres. And the day before this, he was fine. But then the day before the actual murder, he came in. And
so it's 2 days before the murder.
He was fine.
And in relation to this dinner that he had, the dinner is in front of us
So
still?
this is in January. The dinner just happened.
So the dinner has just happened
this
at
is
Christmas
right after
time.
Christmas, yeah.
Okay, so now we're like a week in the future.
Yeah.
And we've just seen, we're going to the lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he brings his daughter to the office with him. She's just minding her business, coloring like she usually does. And he goes up to the lawyer and he goes, "Read this." And he's showing her this Bible that is in Swedish. And he goes, "You're the creator. You can read any language." And she's, of course, freaked out. And she's like, "I'm alone up here. I can't do anything." And then John just keeps going on about wanting to be baptized. And in an hour, he had an appointment with a priest. And the more she tried to steer him back to what they were supposed to be talking about, he just kept getting angrier. So she just wanted to get him out. And then he makes a comment that kind of haunts her forever. And he goes, "Don't worry about filing the paperwork. None of this is going to matter tomorrow." And that's about his custody.
So he knows what he's going to do.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's planned it for a long time before this?
I think he at least planned it the days prior. I think around Christmas is when it got into his head.
So you think the dinner was the last time he had it together?
I don't even know if he did then because he was unusually calm during that dinner. He didn't pick any fights. It was a peaceful dinner. And the mother of Phoebe, Michelle, she remembers thinking about it, like being like, oh, this is great. And then in hindsight, she's kind of like, it just kind of haunted her a little bit. So the lawyer then's like, I got to get him out of here. When she does that, she's like, I can call the police. I can have him be intercepted at the church he says he's going to. Cool. So she helps him pack away the Bible and stuff. And then John asks her, can Phoebe stay with you just while I go to the church? And she just kind of like, she didn't know what to do. The child doesn't really know her. She didn't want to scare Phoebe, and she didn't want John to come back and then like accuse her of kidnapping his child. She's a lawyer. She kind of knows that these things can happen. And Phoebe was still coloring. She had a daughter her age. Phoebe didn't really want to leave. She wanted to finish her drawing. But the lawyer was like, you have to take your daughter. And she wishes so desperately that she had kept Phoebe with her there, because she feels like she could have stopped this. And I don't know that she could have in that instance. It wasn't up to her to stop it. But
no, but I do feel like that was sort of the wrong call.
Yeah. But she did immediately call the cops. And she's like, this man's crazy. He has a minor child with him. Dispatcher goes, did he want to harm himself? And she's like, no. He just kept saying that I was God, and I don't know if he was on something or what. And she just kept thinking, and she said this to the officer. She's like, I should have kept the child. She waited for them to call her back to tell her that they had got John and he was Baker acted, right? Baker acted. They called, and they were like, can't do anything. He was fine. She was absolutely livid and upset. They also said that John was actually on his way back to the office to pay the filing fee, and she was like, why is he coming back? He didn't even file. He doesn't have to pay me anything. So she calls the DCS hotline. She's like, they will help, right? So this was like an 18-minute call. And she just was like, he's delusional. He has a child with him. She explained the Bible to her, the dispatcher, or the woman on the phone. And he also kept saying that Phoebe wasn't his child in the office. And the counselor goes, okay. Based on the information you provided, unfortunately, it doesn't rise to the level of Florida statutes for us to be able to accept the report at this time. And she's like...
To accept the report.
Yeah. So they're not doing anything.
They did.
Yep.
They didn't even accept the report?
Correct.
So it's just like delete.
Yep.
I just sat here and listened to you for 18 minutes. Goodbye.
She goes, based on what you've told me, it sounds like they at least have some support next door with his parents, so... And the lawyer was like, I just wanted to make sure you knew he's not in his right mind and he has a 5-year-old. And the counselor just goes, right. Yep. So, we continue to the day of. And once again, there are like 200 times that this man could have been stopped and wasn't. So it's like around 11 a.m. John brings Phoebe to this church. It's a St. Paul Catholic church in Tampa. And he's like, I got to be baptized right now. I need you to exorcise me. And they're like...
He has to be baptized and exorcised?
Correct.
Okay.
Even I know you can't just walk into a church and say, exorcise me.
And they were like...
Exorcism time.
They were like,
where's
nah,
Ed and Lorraine Warren?
Yeah, right.
that's not going to help. Make it worse.
No.
But... And then for the next 4 hours, he would drag his daughter to 2 more churches with the same thing.
So nobody wants to give him his exorcism.
Or his baptism.
Well, they're Catholic churches. There's a whole process.
Yeah, I was
Yep.
like, you can't even just go to the doors and say, baptize me, because
No.
that's just not how it works.
There are some Protestant churches that may.
Yeah, but
definitely
these are
not
Catholic.
the Catholics.
No.
So, the last church I believe that he went to, a secretary there took Phoebe to, like, they had like a preschool, like a child's area, I guess, while John talked to the Reverend William Swengros. I don't know how to say this name. Swengros. We're going to go with that. That's I don't know how to say it.
Swengros. Yeah, that's
Swengros?
good.
Okay. John told the priest that he had to be baptized. He goes, I am the Pope. Actually, I know that I'm not. There was a series of a point in time in this where he kept saying, like, I found out that I'm related to the Pope and I'm actually the Pope and he's not. It was so convoluted that I really couldn't put it into this as much.
But then he backtracked and said, I'm not the Pope.
Yes.
I'm not related to the Pope.
Yes.
Yeah.
He then said, I'm possessed, exorcise me. And of course, they're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially not after saying all that.
So the priest was like, we can't do that, but here's a number you can call.
The exorcism hotline?
Yep.
Is there an exorcism hotline?
I don't know.
But that's what he gave him?
I guess.
For the
He
exorcism?
gave him forms, too.
For an
Forms?
exorcism?
You have to apply, I imagine.
Oh,
To
yeah,
be
yeah.
exorcised?
The
Well, yeah,
Catholic
they have
Church
to.
is really hard on that right now.
They need to make sure you're not mentally ill.
Mm-hmm. No, they actually care about that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. But also, I feel like, if the devil was possessing me, he wouldn't wait for me to fill out some forms before making me
gonna
do
have
some
to.
terrible stuff.
He's going to have to. I don't know.
This is a flawed system here. We need to revamp the exorcism forms.
I think as a rule, and someone can correct me, but I believe that for the most part, possession, you do the most violence to yourself rather than others.
Correct. I think so.
So,
I just typed in exorcism hotline.
yes.
And the first thing that pops up is request an exorcism. To locate the app, search for Catholic exorcism.
There's an app. There's an app for that.
Gotta download this app, Savannah.
RDOC of Washington?
Archdiocese, man.
I don't know. I've never seen that word
So the
before.
Archdiocese of Washington will connect with you
You can
via
request
an app?
You can request an exorcism. Hold on, I'm clicking on it. I probably shouldn't, but I'm doing
Boy,
it.
Francis is really with it.
Procedures.
Putting Savannah on the list
Procedures
now.
for requesting an exorcism. They need to person seeking an exorcism from that place should follow the protocol below. For Catholics or non-Catholics residing in that place of Washington, D.C., the first step is to request an appointment with his or her local parish.
Mm-hmm.
For those residing outside of D.C., please contact your local Catholic priest. If you do not reside in this, we are unable to... if you don't reside within the
Archdiocese of DC.
Archdiocese of D.C. of Washington, we are unable to assist you and you may not receive a response.
So they will only exorcise you if you happen to be in the greater Washington area.
The priest will listen to the person's history, provide pastoral guidance and deliverance prayers. After praying over the person, if the priest considers it appropriate, he or she is referred to the exorcism team of the Archdiocese. The person will be asked to fill out requisite forms as part of the screening process. The exorcism team will assess the situation and determine appropriate steps. Confidentiality is assured through the process. Parents seeking ministry for a son or daughter under the age of 18 may start by making an appointment for their child with their local parish priest, and the above outline is the same. While the parents may desire ministry for children over 18, at that age, the son or daughter must initiate.
My God.
Wow. So, but it sounds like this guy got to the form stage. So there was a screening stage with the priest,
Yeah,
and
he
the
had
priest
the
said,
conversation.
"Yeah, you're reasonably a candidate for exorcism."
As he's saying he's the Pope. Yeah, he's mentally
It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? He's clearly not well.
It's going to get worse.
Okay.
So, as he came out of this priest office, 2 Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputies were waiting for him. Ones that had been called, once again, by the lawyer to
the
intercept
lawyer,
him.
not the priest.
Correct.
Okay.
One had been trained to evaluate people with mental illness. I repeat, one of these officers had been trained to evaluate people with mental illness.
Okay.
So they asked the priest, hey, was John a danger to anybody? Himself or anyone else? Priest is like, nah. And then
How would the priest know?
I guess he evaluated him for an exorcism. I don't know.
Well, yeah, he approved him. He got to the form stage.
Yeah, I was about to
I
say.
mean, also, he might be a danger if he's going asking for an exorcism.
Yeah,
Like, that's kind of a given that something is not
Something ain't right.
regardless of exorcisms.
Yes, it's like a cry
Yep.
for help at that point.
Something's off there.
The police report concludes that he did not exhibit any signs of mental illness. The little girl appeared happy, wrote the deputy, and waved at me as she was leaving with her dad. I hope that haunts that man forever. Just saying.
Yeah.
It probably does.
I hope so. It should. I'm so angry about this case.
Well, but is it not conceivable, Bree, that he could? I mean, we know that this is true, that people can act right in the right circumstances. Like, he could turn it off for the authorities.
Yeah. Which, it's interesting because it doesn't seem like this man did.
Well, not with the priest. No, he was talking
In most
about
of
the Pope.
he just didn't. I guess they were just like, yeah, this dude's weird. Mm-hmm. But it's fine. And it's like a child custody lawyer, called the police, DCS, multiple times being like, I think this is, something wrong is going to happen. He literally said he doesn't need to sign these papers anymore, and he's taking this 5-year-old with him.
Yeah, that's the most disturbing
Yeah.
thing. The rest of it's just sort of like nonsense around that. The Pope and all that doesn't seem to be a direct threat. It's just bizarre.
It's coming from somebody who also has experience. Like, it's not just some random person saying, hey, this guy is unsafe, like, and they need to take the child away. Like, it's somebody who's legit that can voice these concerns to the police and should be heard.
Yep. So, we're going to go back to the night that it happened. So, after he did all of that throughout the day is when, at midnight, he committed the act of throwing his daughter off of the bridge, 62 feet to the ground, or to the water.
Was it at midnight?
It was around midnight, yeah.
Oh, around, yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, I mean, because that seemed like a moment the cop pulled him over, and it seemed like he hadn't timed it, in a ritual fashion.
Her, they called her death at like 2:44 in the morning, because they had found her like an hour and 45 minutes after. So, back to that night, he pulls away. The officer calls it in, and then he's like, I'm going and looking for this kid immediately. So the officer, as he's doing this, John is down the interstate and is then in pursuit by 2 other officers. And in an attempt to U-turn back down this road, they are able to cut him off and stop him. So they pull him over, and they get him out of the car, and he yawns and stretches and pulls his hoodie over his head. The deputies are searching his car. They see, crumbled packets of Seneca Menthol 100 cigarettes, if that says anything about the man. A half-eaten piece of cherry cobbler. It's the weirdest thing.
Of what?
Cherry cobbler.
Oh, sorry.
Dolce & Gabbana light blue cologne. And then, in the back, Phoebe's Christmas presents. As well as...
That he had bought for her?
Yep, that are the ones that they had gotten from other people, and he just kept them in the car.
I see. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he's completely delusional and believes that she's still there.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. Yeah. So, in addition to this, on the passenger seat, they found that large antique Swedish Bible open. And then below, there's a regular Bible, and it's open to the New Testament. Nehemiah. Thank you. 9:11. You divided the sea before them so that they passed through it on dry ground, but you hurled their pursuers into the depths like a stone into mighty waters.
Oh. Yikes.
Oh, no.
So it would come to find out that his stepmother knew this. He was in the belief that he was the Archangel Michael fallen, and that his daughter, his 5-year-old daughter with beautiful eyes, cutest smile, and just dirty blonde curly hair, was possessed.
So the devil was pursuing him through the child.
Yep. His daughter, who loved drawing specifically handout lines and confessions of love to her loved ones. Yeah.
So there was nothing. Well, of course he's delusional, so he's completely imagined it.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So did he want the exorcism for himself or for her then? I think I've been confused.
He kept saying it was for him. He kept saying it was for him.
But he believes she's possessed.
Yep. All of this is very confused.
So identity seems to be a real issue. Like, I'm the Pope, I'm not the Pope. I need an exorcism, she is possessed. Who is him and who isn't? Like, the boundary between himself and others seems to be blurry.
Yeah. So later in the police interview room, they're asking him normal questions, like, you know, what they would do. And then he goes, "Is Phoebe okay?" And at that point, they didn't know who he had thrown over. And they're like, "Who is Phoebe?" And he's like, "My daughter." And then that's when they were like, oh. And it was around that time that they had actually found her. And her fall would have lasted about like 2 seconds. And the autopsy did show that she had drowned. The damage was so bad from the fall, but she just... The worst way that girl could have died, the girl who couldn't swim, who was terrified of water, she drowned after her father threw her off a bridge.
So it wasn't that he believed that she was okay. He knew what he had done, knew that it was dangerous, and was seeing if she had survived.
I really do think he was kind of like, was my sacrifice complete?
I see.
That's my thought on it, because he didn't show any remorse for this. There's been interviews with him after the fact where he basically is like, I feel bad because she thought I was such a great dad and I was supposed to let nothing happen to her, and I did let something happen to her. I think it's one of the quotes. It's literally one of the quotes from him.
But is the letting of something happen to her in his mind the possession?
No, I don't know, actually. He doesn't clarify
you see what
on
I
that.
mean?
Yeah, I do.
I don't think that the interviewer really was pursuing that line of thought, because he was found criminally sane. And he was
found criminally sane.
He was sane. He was not found criminally insane because he knew what he did. Every evidence showed the premeditation, showed that he knew what he did, and there was no remorse for what he had done. I do think he was in a delusional state when he did this, but I don't think it affected his cognitive ability to be able to tell that what he was doing was wrong. Because
a Bible in a language he can't read has somehow informed him, I'm guessing, that his child is possessed.
Yep.
I mean, this is it makes... No rational person could come to this conclusion.
Correct.
Okay.
But he knew he was killing his daughter. He knew he was sacrificing her. And he knew she wasn't coming back from that.
I see the premeditation, that's for sure. So, I mean, criminal insanity would require that you don't understand the consequences of your actions.
Yeah. And even during his arrest, he referred to it as a conspiracy and said, quote, "My name is God, and you shall address me as such. I command you to take me to the city of Babylon now." And on arraignment, he asked for divine intervention.
Where did this all come from? I mean,
It literally seemed like it came somewhere around Christmas of the 2014, and she died by January 2015.
Because he was not a member of any religious organization. He had not been radicalized by anyone on the internet or anything.
Not that I could tell. The only religious anything would have been his family, but it didn't seem like at that point in his life it was any significant part of his life.
He invented his own religious ideas out of a Swedish Bible.
Yeah, a centuries-old Swedish Bible that his mother had for some reason. I still don't know where this Bible came from.
But he also had got an English Bible, so he...
Yeah.
It's confusing, I suppose.
It also happened so fast.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is, it's really weird.
It like an excuse for
That's what I was just
things
thinking.
that he was already planning on doing, and he found that, and it pushed him?
I don't know, because this is the case out of the two that I don't think it was an excuse for him. I think it was an exact reason for him. But I think it made sense to him, and it was right to him. And I don't think there was any... It was pretty black and white to him that he had to... He kept saying he had to kill her so that everybody else would live. Because it was basically like he was making her the Antichrist in some way, shape, or form. when this little girl did nothing but love him all of her life.
But was the only person close to him, possibly, or no?
What do you mean?
Well, like he was not in a relationship with his partner. Who
no,
he
the
had
daughter
the
was the
child
closest
with.
person he had to him, other than his stepmother.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that. I mean, getting back to whatever I'm thinking about his identity and that sort of thing, is like maybe a martyr complex there. I mean, a God complex for sure. But.
Maybe. There's also some thought on the idea that his stepmother, so they were living with her at the time that this happened, was treating Phoebe better than she treated him as a child, because she was trying to make up. She literally said, she's like, I was trying to give her the childhood that I failed to give my son. And there was some thought that maybe he felt resentment towards that. But it really doesn't show up in any of the evidences that was the case. That was just conjecture that people were trying to rationalize for being the reason behind this. But
so get us to Abraham here.
yeah. So his entire, I think that was the start of his fix.
Was the story of Abraham and
I think it had to be. I think that's where it started, because if you look at all of the delusions and the thoughts that came after. So say we start with Abraham and Isaac. Mm-hmm. He is a father with a child who he can't care for. But he still manages to keep custody of her. And for some reason around Christmas, this triggers.
We're not talking about Abraham.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I thought you. Yeah, I was about to say, wait, Abraham can't take care of his
No,
son?
Abraham
he was
was fine, other than actually willing to kill
He
his
was
child.
married
for God.
and everything.
But,
He was good. He was set up.
so, around Christmas, he gets this Bible, the Swedish Bible, that I'm sure he became fascinated with, which then drove him to actually read an actual Bible that he could understand and then correlate the two. I think the Swedish Bible was a prop for him, more so than anything, because he couldn't read it, unless he thought he could. But he clearly asked other people to read it for him, so I don't know. But he then delved into the Bible, found the story of Abraham and Isaac, and I think latched onto that, and then kind of spiraled from there. So if you take the themes from that story, father killing son for God, right? An angel stopping that. A sacrifice still of something to replace that. Was there a means to an end for that other than showing his faith to God? I don't remember.
No, that was the point.
So that's where that differs, because for him, there was a means to an end. And I think that came later down the line with his obsession. So if we take those first four themes, he was a father with a child that he was willing to kill. And then I guess he, for some reason, also decided that he embodied the angel that came, because he kept saying that about himself, which then gives him the right to stop it or not, which he then chooses not to. And the sacrifice still happens with the original object of the sacrifice instead of something else. And then we get into all of the other random shit that doesn't make sense if we relate it to that. I don't know, because it's such a short time span that I don't know where exactly he spiraled from that point forward.
So there's a moment where he reads Abraham and Isaac, you're saying?
I think there has to be.
Yeah.
To me, I'm not a religious person. Religion in a classical sense. But to me, this sounds like he was just mentally ill in general and didn't want to be a dad anymore, and then found this thing that ended up being a solution for him, and then he became obsessed with it.
But may or may not have been consciously aware.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's exactly it. I think he not consciously aware that that's what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And I think because he wasn't consciously aware with that, tied into the delusional behavior that can come with manic episodes of bipolar that he did exhibit.
Because it happened way too fast. I don't think nobody decides to kill their child that fast. I genuinely think he didn't want to be a dad anymore, didn't think he could take care of his kid anymore, and then he latched onto that story and that became a solution.
An odd one.
Yeah.
I mean, a terrible one.
Yeah,
but
and I think you're right. Like, I don't think he obviously wasn't in his right mind and stuff. It does sound like it was like a bipolar episode almost. Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
I mean, why not give her to the grandmother or any of these things?
That was even something that was brought up, and I think that then devolved into the concept that, well, she's possessed. She has to die so that everybody else can live, because if she lives, we all die, was something that he kept saying in so many words.
Yeah, there's a grandeur to the whole thing.
To help you justify it.
And even at his trial, when the judge was asking him, like, do you want a lawyer appointed to you? He's like, I want to leave it in the hands of God. And I think the judge even said something, well, God's not going to prove your case for you. And he was like, well, then find me somebody just and good. And he was like, I'll do the best. And he just kept insisting that he didn't want to be represented by a lawyer. He wanted God to represent him.
Yes.
And like I listened to the audio of this, and I've never heard somebody. I believe that he believed that God would represent him in this trial because he was so convinced, and he did not waver. There was no wavering in his voice. There was no thought about what he was saying. He was just talking.
So if the religious mania was suddenly onset, it then lingered ever afterwards.
Yeah, and even I think I kind of ignored a lot of the present day interviews because I didn't think he deserved them. Because he was found guilty of first-degree murder in 2019.
Sure, yeah, that's good.
So
there's a little bit of the system working.
Yeah, he was sentenced to life,
Yeah.
and I don't believe he'll have the possibility of parole, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, but somebody, you're right, should have taken that child away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I have reports. I have statistics of how screwed up and messed up. I'm so angry about this. The system was.
Do you think that he continued to latch on to this religious like delusion thing because it was the only way his brain could rationalize like what he did to his daughter, where he was like, I can't back down on it now because like then I have to admit that I killed my daughter?
I said I don't think he really cared. I mean, it's very obvious that he didn't care what happened to her, so I don't think he would need to rationalize it because that's what he wanted to do.
After the fact, he was kind of making sure she was dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I was just thinking like if his brain ever had a moment of clarity where he was like, oh shit, I did that to my daughter, it would wrap itself back around being like, no, I did the right thing, and continue to believe these religious claims.
It's a large act. I mean, it does seem to shift. I mean, if this is, how it worked out, that one day he's all in on this religious mania, makes a big choice that he can't go back on, and then he's all in forever afterwards on the mythology he's developed for himself.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at, because it's just like it changes. So like people normally don't fall into religion that quickly, right?
Well, that's one of the...
Be surprised.
I mean, I certainly...
I have so many stories. Oh, Savannah. You should have seen the other choice I gave Rob instead of this. It's... Religion is such a dangerous thing that we have indulged in as humans. It's so bad. It does... In everything that I have seen, it does so much more bad than it has done good. And I'm saying organized religion in general, not like specific religions, but just the organization of it is so problematic today.
That's true.
It has been.
I was just watching that Twin Flames documentary last night.
Well, I mean, and in fairness, we're looking, I mean, when you think about these cults and all this sort of business, it's organized, yes, but it's organized by an individual who has taken the latitude to extrapolate on the doctrine in ways that are, I mean, it's a uniquely Protestant phenomenon, really. Like, we can blame Martin Luther at the core, that there's no... You don't have to check with the priest. And we celebrate that on this podcast, the pluralism and all that sort of thing. But it can result in you being your own God, ultimately, which allows you to make choices regardless of the consequences.
Yep.
If you're mentally ill.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've met people who have claimed religion really quickly, and they go head first. And they are some of the most terrifying people to be around because they think they know everything.
It's a reasoning behind being able to be like, I know more than you do.
Yeah.
It's a way to have control over people. It's something that's easy to latch onto so you can control other people.
I would put to you, Bree, that if we did not have religion to do this, we would find something else to do.
100%. I'm just saying it's I think, more unfortunate that it is religion, because it's such a strong thing that for forever, our entire existence in some way, shape, or form has driven us to goals and to achieve things. And it's such a strong thing to pull with like this that makes it, I think, so much more dangerous. Because it's so easy to abuse, and to abuse people who really do believe it and really do want the purest things out of it.
I mean, that's getting back to the occult confessions doctrine, so far as we have one. I mean, it's the idea that God is a mystery and God is not a knowable quantity. And when you claim that you know the will of God, that is when you get into difficult territory.
Accept any, like, the people who are like this, they don't accept anything that is, like, unbiased or biased. I can't remember the right term, but like they don't look through it and find flaws. They look through it and they're like, this is fact. All of this is fact. So they take everything literally, and that's where things can get dangerous.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bring us on home, Bree. I know you're trying to get to this. Bree's take on this.
All right. So every single institution designed to protect and help children like Phoebe Jonchuck failed her time and time again. DCF failed her in every way conceivable. For her 5 short years of life, there were numerous call-ins and reports that told accounts of abuse and threats to her safety. All of them were ignored up until and including the days that she was murdered by her father, who these reports were about. The days before, there was at least 2 reports, and the ones that I could find accounts of, there had been at least 7 different times somebody had called about Phoebe in her life. So, and the frequency of those reports created the boy who cried wolf bias, and that's what the department concluded it was. They dismissed this just as custody squabbles, and it cost a girl her life. Over the past 5 years, 215 children in Florida have been killed by inflicted trauma, beating, shaking, intentional drowning. 1/4 of them were kids that DCF, I keep saying DCF, but I don't know if it's DCF or DCS, but either one, they knew about it, just like Phoebe. And almost half of those kids had a parent who had reported them, had been reported to them, like her father did. So this case actually caused an overhaul. It caused an overhaul in specifically Florida's Department of Child Services to change their questionnaire that they ask when they get these calls. So I don't really think it did much. Because if we look at Florida, just look at Florida.
There's more forms to fill out.
It's literally...
form. Yeah, they added the exorcism question. The state, man. The state.
It's so bad.
It's very bad.
In the past... What is it, 2023, almost 2024? In the past, 5 years, the amount of cases I personally have looked at about children being murdered by their caregivers or the people around them and the systems failing them in some way or another are astounding, and they just keep increasing. More children are dying by murder by somebody that's supposed to love and care for them now than they ever have been. And it gets more brutal every time. The details of these cases are so horrific that I'm a very strong stomach person, but they have brought me to tears. It is just horrific what is happening and what is not being done about it, and how every institution is failing.
The family first and foremost.
And it should not be that way.
Yeah, I mean, you fall back on the state because there's no family structure to rein this in or to settle it. I mean, the man is sort of floating free. He's got very few relations to check him and check his situation. I don't know. I don't want to get conservative about it, but the failure of the family is the first failure.
Yeah.
And then the state fails next. So it's everyone. It's the left and right failing, right?
Every single part of this structure just falls through because they're all just corrupted in some way, shape, or form. Because sometimes kids will get put with different parts of the family, and sometimes the entire family is just tainted by gross. And then, say they get put in the system. They get put with other families that some of the cases I've seen, they had perfectly fine parents, but they just couldn't take care of the kids, so they got put into the foster care system, and their foster parents killed them. And it's like, and I'm talking kids under the age of 6 usually.
Yeah.
It's mostly between infancy and 6 years old.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's sad to think about, like, these people, all they had to do was check.
Yeah.
They had, like, all they could have done was a checkup. Without warning, they could even done one with a warning. They could have checked up on this child and him and the state of him.
And
But they couldn't even do that.
Yeah, and the ones who didn't care enough to actually really do anything about it. The trained mental health aware, whatever, the person who was trained in evaluation of that, he was like, nah.
I don't know if
fine.
they become desensitized or what it is. It seems strange.
I also don't know if maybe there was a bias as an officer approaching a church with somebody spouting religious nonsense to not say that that is mental illness because they don't want to infringe on your beliefs.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that might have been part of it. I'm being really hard on everybody here, but I can understand as an officer being in that situation where it's like, we're literally in a church and I don't know if this is your actual beliefs or if this is something I should be concerned about, because I'm
Where's
trained
the
in mental
line?
illness, but maybe not in
The only thing
religious.
against that, though, was that he wasn't a part of the church. He just showed up.
But the priest didn't. The priest vouched for him. The
That's
priest
crazy.
failed.
The priest.
failed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very odd that the priest even put him... Anyway.
Yeah.
Got him to form stage.
To conclude this conversation, make sure people are okay around you. Check on everybody. Just say, hi, how's it going? Have you been really following somebody lately that you just found? Or do you have a kid that maybe somebody should be checking on more? In one of the interviews that I listened to with Michelle Kerr, Phoebe's mother, I'm going to leave this with her words. She said, I always called Phoebe my angel child, and now she really is.